When you interview Americans on TikTok, the number one thing they want to be is an influencer. Well, they have the Chinese language equivalent of TikTok called Douyin. Douyin, the kids get 40 minutes a day, max, by law, no more. Was this enormous influence machine. What the Chinese Communist Party recognized in what Silicon Valley was building was this enormous influence machine, right? You can influence people's perceptions, their behavior patterns. Now, Silicon Valley's been doing this a long time. It's how you create a $1 trillion company like Amazon, right, or Google. It's really about using the information you gather about people to then curate the content that brings them in line with what you want them to do. What do you want them to do? You want them to be better consumers on your platform so you make more money. This is the business model of Silicon Valley. Well, the Chinese recognize, okay, I can make you not just a better consumer, I can make you a better person, a better citizen. And how is that? And they say this, they said, ByteDance, it's your job to make citizens, to create content for citizens that make them better socialists, right? So ByteDance creates algorithms that power the TikTok platform. Okay, so how might the Chinese Communist Party take advantage of this? Well, now 30% or more of young people get their news from TikTok. That's the platform they get their news from. So I'm less concerned about the intelligence collection. That's obviously a problem. But that's not where this is going. It's about creating a movement. It's about creating a community. A community, number one, that loves TikTok, but then because it loves TikTok and it's on the platform, often hours per day, then there's also things that you can begin to love, or at least not hate. And so it's an influence tool. It's an influence tool. You can you sense this in your bones. Like if you put one of these things in the hands of somebody, there's ways to slowly get them to do things. So it's like, well, where's the evidence, right? So another YouTuber, LaoY86, puts the evidence right on this thing. It's like, here is message after message after message promoting, some policy that the Chinese Communist Party wants, different venues, different people, right? Because you have to take the message and you have to break it up into the content that people want. What type of people do they want to see saying this message? What type of venue do they want them in? What type of, how do we frame that shot so that we get this segment of people? And then you do it over a bunch of segments. He's shown verbatim messages that are in TikTok. Like somebody's reading the message, but it's different people, different places, different times. And so it really becomes a platform for you to do all kinds of things. And this is a thing that we never had prior to the internet. So I think it's well established that the Soviet Union had, active measures programs, right? That they were trying to subvert the United States, people in the United States. But we didn't really give them purchase. Now we've given the Chinese Communist Party not just purchase, they are basically plugged in to 180 million people in the United States, of a population of 330 million, directly plugged into them. And do they love the Constitution? Hell no. That is their biggest fear, is that their people become aware, somehow sentient of the U.S. Constitution. And so in the same way that we made the world safe for democracy during the Cold War, they're making the world safe for the Chinese Communist Party by slowly eroding our value system, our belief system in terms of what's right, what's proper, what's expected by a citizen of a country. And so that's the biggest thing. Now you mentioned another that is I think equally a problem, and that is, what happens to a person that stays on this platform for hours of a day? Well, they stop doing other things, right? So just if you look at productivity, national productivity as a positive thing for your society, if I can get you to do this for hours and hours of a day, then I can at the macro level, 170 million people out of 330 million, they're watching these things for hours of a day. Your national productivity goes down. Okay? Well, you say, well, where's the evidence of that? Well, they have the Chinese language equivalent of TikTok called Douyin. Douyin, the kids get 40 minutes a day, max, by law, no more. Shuts off.
That's the Chinese version of TikTok in China.
Chinese version. By the way, TikTok itself is not allowed in China. So no TikTok. You can't have Douyin, basically Chinese language version of TikTok, but you can do it for 40 minutes a day. And when you interview those kids and you say, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? The number one thing is I want to be an astronaut. When you interview Americans on TikTok, the number one thing they want to be is an influencer, right? So you're influencing people, their behavior patterns. You're reducing national productivity, and you're also taking an entire generation of people and saying, this is the number one thing to be, right? Not an engineer, not a doctor, So it's a very powerful tool, and it's just basically taking the tools that Silicon Valley created and just tweaking them a little bit for not just economic benefit but for social and political benefit. It's really very basic, and I think anybody that's in Silicon Valley and understands, why you want to get somebody like Facebook to 100, 200 million users, and the power of that as a platform, or Google. And the power of that as a platform, or Amazon, and the power of that as a platform can understand a regime that's dedicated to the downfall of our constitutional republic, using those same techniques and tactics and procedures to slowly get the American people to stop believing in what is unique about America.
Do you think this differs? I mean, is this more dangerous than what we're seeing on other social platforms like Instagram, X, Facebook, Snapchat, and YouTube? Is it? I mean, because the messaging that's coming from Silicon Valley, as we kind of discussed at breakfast, I mean, it's maybe just as toxic.
Well, so. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and so you kind of take the framework. If you've read the Federalist Papers, by and large, the Federalist Papers argue for a republic because of national security, what we would call national security. Basically, Alexander Hamilton, in quite a few of them, argues that we need to come together as a federal republic. Because if we're separate, then we're going to be picked off one by one as states, as colonies, if you will. And so national security was heavily kind of the most, I think, important thing. There was other things, but primarily, how do we protect ourselves from England or any of these other monarchies that may want to take away our freedoms? We have to band together in order to do that. And so what are the things that we need to worry about? Well, in the Constitution, it says we need an army, we need a navy. Right? So we had powerful armies and we had powerful navies. There was no we need a cybersecurity organization or, we need a cyber command because there's no internet, right? So as they could conceive of a threat to our individual political independence and sovereignty, it could only come by force of arms, right? Somebody could come and occupy us and then take that away by force of arms. And that's why, we have things like the Second Amendment. But imagine if you could say, hey, I can slowly erode your political independence and sovereignty by beginning to change your mind through this medium called the internet. How might we have conceived of the republic differently and instantiated it not just in laws, but also in technology? And that's the thing that I think is a real problem. When Trump went to China.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.